What is up, guys? In today's video, we'll be talking about a very wet and rainy weather pattern and a few days of severe weather that are coming. Let's get right into this video. Alright, the first thing we're talking about is a slight risk of severe storms that we do have an effect across portions of the Texas Panhandle and a small portion of southwestern Oklahoma that we do currently have an effect. It's just a 2 out of 5 level on the severe weather scale, including Amarillo and Lubbock areas. We do have a pretty significant, pretty high chance of pretty large hail across much of this region. If you do see, this is a 15% chance of hail, and in that black area means a significant severe hail of 2+ inch in diameter. So anywhere in this black hatched area and yellow area could see some big time hail from this throughout the day today, throughout the evening hours that we are going to have tonight in much of these areas. So make sure you do have your cars indoors, as some pretty big storms will develop, posing that risk. Now, the tornado threat is very, very low with these storms, almost zero. So and actually, maybe tornado or two is possible, but really not much. Then the wind threat is definitely up there. We do have a wind threat is a bit further towards the east, but portions of this hatched area could see some pretty significant wind damage from this above 70 miles an hour. So pretty hefty storms, not a massive severe weather risk, but we could see some pretty strong to severe storms here if you are in the Lubbock and Amarillo areas. Make sure you have a plan and be prepared. Now, what is absolutely crazy, guys, is that is basically the only more potent severe weather day that we do have in the entire forecast, as we're in peak season right now. It is May 22nd. This is peak severe weather season for this time of year across the United States in Tornado Alley, and we have barely any severe weather at all. The current pattern we're in is not very conducive for severe weather, and this has been a very weird May. Very underwhelming May, we'll say, for tornado-wise. Areas like Oklahoma expected 30 to 35 tornadoes in the month of May. And areas in Oklahoma have only seen 0 tornadoes, I think, this year. And Texas expects like 40 tornadoes and has only seen 3 tornadoes this year, which is absolutely crazy. But we're still in a pretty active weather pattern, to say the least. As besides most of the severe weather stuff, we just don't have very much energy. We don't have very much big storm systems, but we do have a lot of moisture across the United States. You just see that in the forecast, there's no crashing cold fronts, no big systems to amplify this. It's just like that summer weather pattern where we get a lot of rain, but nothing too severe in the sense. And if you do see that the GFS has a lot of rain, specifically nestled in the portions of the southeastern part of the U.S., is really in that bullseye for a lot of rainfall. And if you look at the national blend of models, we're going to be seeing a lot of rain getting in from now into early June, into probably the first day of June. If you see those red areas, that's anywhere above 2 inches of rain in those red areas, and that is quite a lot of rain in much of these areas that we are going to be having here. So that is what we're talking about. A ton of rain in the southern portion of the U.S. Look at that, a big bullseye, 5+ inches of rain in Louisiana and Mississippi. So we're going to be seeing flash flooding and basically a lot of thunderstorms that are coming. The GFS has us too, a ton of rain for these areas. If we look at the European ensemble, it has, look at that, that is so much rain getting into early June across some of these regions. And it's going to be very beneficial because a lot of these areas have been under pretty significant drought conditions throughout much of the winter into springtime. And this is definitely going to really wear that off for areas like Birmingham, Atlanta, all those areas. Florida have been in some very big drought conditions, and this will be very helpful for the drought. Now, because of all this rainfall that we do have expected across the United States, we have multiple flash flooding risks that we're going to be having over the next few days or so. The first one that we do currently have across much of the eastern United States, with many slight risks of flash flooding in effect. Another big one here in portions of Alabama into the panhandle of Florida and portions of southern Mississippi, where we do have some flash flooding risks from Birmingham, Chattanooga, down to Mobile and Pensacola regions, where we could see some excessive rainfall today. And this continues in tomorrow. The threat shifts a little bit further towards the west, where I do think portions of Texas and Louisiana here are going to be getting a ton of rain over the next few days. And this shifts a little bit further towards the west, where we do have this flash flooding risk from San Antonio to Corpus Christi, Austin, Houston, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport areas, where we could see some flash flooding. Any of these yellow areas is where we do have at least a 15% chance of seeing flash flooding within 25 miles of points. So a lot of flash flooding is possible, and they're even mentioning the potential of upgrading to a moderate risk of flash flooding, as 2 to 3 inch per hour rates are possible with this, guys. We could be seeing a lot of rainfall from this in training of and building of thunderstorms in these areas. So I cannot urge this. If you're on these areas, big time flash flooding could definitely be possible. We might even see a moderate risk of flash flooding in portions of these areas get issued. Now we get another risk for flash flooding on day 3 on Saturday, and this shifts it a little bit further towards the east, but areas including New Orleans, Houston, kind of similar areas that are under the risk tomorrow on Saturday. But on Sunday, Houston, New Orleans, and these yellow areas are under a slight risk of flash flooding. And this rainfall is going to shift a little bit further towards the east, but it's going to be the same thing. Training of thunderstorms are the same areas over and over again. It's going to be the typical summer thunderstorms that we get in the south, but it's going to be training, and it's going to have a lot of precipitable water. So there's going to be a lot of energy to make big storms, and very high rainfall rates are going to combine with some pretty big flash flooding potential in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and Houston regions. So if you are in those areas, definitely be having a plan and be prepared, especially if you're on a low-lying or flood-prone region. And if you are driving, turn around, don't drown when encountering flooded roads. That is for any of these flash flooding risks that we do have. Definitely pretty active power. And I do think as the days go by into Monday and Tuesday, we'll also see even more risks of flash flooding get issued in these areas in the southeast, where the main conducive zone has been in these areas of the southeastern portion of the United States. Now, the overall weather pattern has shifted actually quite a bit over the next few days or so. And we went from getting into a much above average weather pattern. We are going to be sitting in that as we get into early June. Much of the northern parts of the United States, including North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, so the northern part of the country will be more above average. It's kind of a flip where the southern U.S. will be below average and the northern U.S. will be above average. But as we get into early June, late May into early June, we see this big area of much below average temperatures across. This is a pretty big sign. Very below average temperatures from the northeast to the central U.S. and the southern United States in this full blue area of below average temperatures. Now, this does not mean cold weather. This just means a little bit more below average for this time of year. So it is late May. This is going into early June. So if it's 80 degrees as your average high, or 85, it'll kind of be a little closer to 70 or 75, 70, 75, a little bit closer to that than compared to what it typically is. And then portions of the northern U.S. up here and portions of the west will be a little bit more above average, getting into that above average temperatures. So the pattern stays. Southern U.S. getting below average temperatures and very rainy. Southern U.S. below average temperatures, very rainy. Northern U.S. above average temperatures, pretty dry. Northern and western U.S. So that's basically the forecast. Alrighty, hope you guys did enjoy today's video. Not too much to talk about. I mean, it's definitely a very rainy weather pattern, a lot of active precipitation, a lot of flash flooding potential days that we do have. The weather pattern for severe weather is very quiet and very dwindled, very small, very little for severe weather wise. So basically, very cool below average temperatures in the southern U.S. Doesn't mean cold, just below average temperatures for this time of year in the southern U.S. Above average temperatures in the northern U.S. for this time of year, and dry, and southern U.S. more rainy. Thanks for watching this video, guys.